Hello, this is a rather windy day in May, but May is my favourite month and it has been quite warm, so I've waited to the end of the day to do this recording of my flower bed, a pedestal bird bath, chives, stone wall, and just throw it together the best possible way because it's quite windy. And I've already had to pick my paper up once, so I pinned it down this time. Now I've wet my brushes, I've also wet all my paints so they're easy to pick up. So I'm going to come in with colour, and the challenge of this one is to leave the white of the paper for the white flowers. Rather, you could use wax and you could use masking fluid, but it's quite a rough paper. It's handmade paper by Two Rivers, so I'm going to attempt to leave the whites on as I paint. And as with lots of blues, it's better to get the blue onto the white of the paper straight away. So again, very loose and impressionistic. And this is a cottage garden, so you have a few scatterings of colour coming here and there elsewhere. And in some places they go quite mauvey, so I add a bit of permanent rose to mauve some of the flowers. A bit like the bluebells really. And they're now finished, or finishing, about to finish. Run it off the page. And down here we've got some chives. Just a bit of blush of colour in. I'm going to use a spray just for a bit of fun on those colours. Just let them merge a bit. Now my water is just full of blue and purple, so I'm going to be a little bit aware of that. And I'm going to come in the ultramarine, make a nice line. For some of the greens. In fact, my brush is a bit moppy and a bit big now. So let's go the next size down. So I've gone for a round brush, good point. I'm coming in with some real lime greens. All the while I'm just leaving some space for the whites. And the leaves of this viburnum sort of come down like that. They're actually quite easy to paint. So again, the brush is used in a manner of the subject you're painting. You know, if you're painting grass, I tend to paint from the ground upwards with a brush, move the brush upwards as the grass grows upwards. So I think of it that way, I suppose. A little bit up here, goes right off the page. I'm going to so much in this border, we're going to narrow it down. One thing I haven't done is mapped out. I'm just going to map it out with a bit of cerulean blue, a bird bath. So maybe I'm going to take out a bit here and put it in here. Happens to have a snake on it. That's because it's a replacement I've made for my nymphs. So I just thought, well, Medusa, nymphs and all that sort of thing. So I'm just gently mapping out the sort of figurines as they come down into the chives. And there is, and if there's too much colour on it, dampen it, just dab it off. But again, we're faced with an ellipse, so we must make sure that the ellipse is correct for your eye level, whether you're sitting or standing. I've taken 2 photographs to help you today, and if you want to do my garden, then there's one in a standing pose and one in a sitting pose, so you'll see the different angles that you get on the photograph and whether you want to do one or the other, or both. Now there is a snake going around here, but I'm not going to bother with that just for now because I've got quite a lot to fit in. Let's get some more purples coming down off the page, sweeping off. Some lovely things happening with paint here. And then of course we've got the rocks. So I'm going to just mix my cobalt blue with my pink and then add a bit of the lime, the limey green, which you can make using lemon yellow. Try and make your brown. It's not actually working very well, so I'm going to bring in a bit of burnt sienna and cheat a bit. So there's a touch of burnt sienna in with the blue purpley mix. You can see it gives quite a natural stone-like effect. It looks quite dark at the moment, so I've got to soften all of that out, and then I'm going to come down like that, as if I'm coming in between some of the foliage below. But this is all going to dry 30% lighter. This little walk sort of disappears under more foliage. And then we've got some foxgloves coming here, but it reappears this side. So it's a very good way of cutting out the nymphs. Obviously it's all a bit too wet, but just make a slight reference to it all. This is like top of the ball there. Okay, going to get my good old stick if I can find it. What have I done with it? I think the dog's run off with that. Okay, found my stick. Just a bit of stick that's been sharpened down. I'm going to draw back into this while it's still a bit wet, just to help structure it a little bit before I go further. And there's my tissues, they've gone. So. And then draw around the bowl. And if the dark happens on the back, that's great. So that's going to profile that bowl. Bit of concentrated drawing here. As you can see, I've got to try and get some sort of resemblance to the nymphs going on. Let's put a little bit of dark under here, which is the ultramarine mauvey pinky brownie that I made for the wall actually. Little bit of burnt sienna thrown in the mix to sort of grey it down a little. Oops, that's picked up something completely different. It's my fault. Let's pull it out. Cobalt turquoise. Never mind. We'll just carry on like nothing's happened. Of course, rinse your brush and then scrub it out a bit. And you'll hardly notice it was there. Okay, so let's start again. Let's bring ultramarine, come in here. all the time looking at your subject matter, all the while. Because you can get carried away trying to draw something you think you know how to draw, and actually, even though this bird bath I've had for about oh golly, 28 years maybe, lost track. I think I know it, but I don't really. Not until you actually draw it and study it several times do you really know it. But we're going to have a go at making some sense of these, and I'm blobbing everywhere, but never mind. Not too worried. So her hand is going across here, and then her hips, stab it out quick. The hips widen and her legs are here. I've got blobs everywhere today. I'll blame the wind. So her other leg goes down behind, and then you've got this wall going on. So let's make sure she's got a bit of a figure. Let's leave that. Come up. She's got a shoulder, and her other arm is actually round behind, touching the nymph on the far side. Ladies, goddesses, whatever you like to call them, in the true Greek style. From some reproduction garden centre. Let's just pick a bit out. That's it. And then her face is upwards. So I'm just going to reference that a little bit. The head, face is a little big. So the head is always smaller than you think. And this one is at a side angle. Looking down. And this one's looking up as if she's actually enjoying the sunshine. Okay, coming. Let's darken that a little, and you'll see the bowl forming. Let's just take the line round the back and a slight rim around the front. The stick is not my usual stick, it's not being very forgiving, so let's take that round. If you're not sure your ellipse is right, it's always quite handy standing up over your page and drawing it that way if you've put your marks in, so you know roughly where all the back and the sides will, just mark there, there, there and there and run round. And sometimes you can't quite make that ellipse when you're sitting down, so I recommend you stand up. So you can see the bowl happening. There's a little, it comes in under here, and there's obviously some more ellipses going on down here, but it's all so wet I'm almost tearing the paper. But I don't mind the corrections, I like the working the process by which something takes shape. So coming back to the wall, I'm just going to, the grey of the bird bath is quite cool, but there are quite a lot of browns and mosses and lichen in the wall. So let's just tone that up a bit as it goes round behind the statue. You can deepen them a bit, deepen those marks. And then as we come down, I've got a lot of what do you call it? Chive. That's what I meant to say. Now they've got lots of buds and they've got lots of blooms as well. So I'm just going to cut out a few for the moment. And from behind, so the negative painting, like that. And I could come straight back in with some sort of bright mauvey tints, like that. So again, it's very impressionistic, but you can draw back in to create the shapes that you want. Let's put some a little higher up. And again, you can do a little bit of artistic license with what's in front of you. You can make more buds open. You can spread the chives left and right a bit more. Got a few rogue grasses in my chives, but happy to put chives in their place. So they come out a bit like this, flower heads. So I'm a bit focusing in on this area, mainly because that was still drying. This is very thick handmade paper and it takes ages to dry, which is great on some ways, because you can concentrate either on drawing while it's wet, which gives you this sort of freedom, while another area is drying. But sometimes you just want it a bit further, a bit drier before you move on. So these are sort of the chive heads. There's also a lot of green down here, so I need to put some in. Let's pick up some of that luscious, it's sort of lemon yellow with a bit of the cobalt, or a bit of or a cerulean blue makes a nice lively green. And there are areas, of course, of darker greens, so change the green, doesn't always have to be the same. I mean, change it within, you've got the same yellow, maybe mix a different blue in, but the blues that perhaps I've used already would make sense. So let's just leave that to do its own thing. Maybe to suggest a few more heads here, rather than just a blank bit of pink. And some more up there. You know, I quite like the herbaceous sort of swathes of colour and swathes of, and let the pink run up and down the stems. What's wrong with that? Nothing. So it just gives a little bit of unity. There's this really nice young foxglove, 2 foxgloves coming up on the right of this bath here, and that would actually quite aid the composition. They're a little closer, so they're going to come off the page and come back in. So I'm going to just roughly draw their stems, which are quite dark. So I've just mixed some of the green into the pink, which gives me this sort of almost burnt sienna look, and they just cross over that border, so it's going to cross over the line of the wall, which is actually quite useful. Actually, there's some real veins in these, and have a really good look. If they're this close, you've really got to check, how do the leaves come off the main stem? They sort of alternate, come off at all angles really, but they're not opposite each other. Right, and then they go to nothing up there. I don't know why I did it that big. And there's another one. It could be here actually. I'm going to move it this side for the minute. Again, just give this sort of subtle reference to the veins of the leaves, And with that, very happily I would drop in a bit more pink, maybe make it a little mauvey places. So this is ultramarine and rose, just to make them stand out a bit more. And if it's all wet, it'll all run up and down into each other. And then the foxgloves themselves aren't actually out, but I'm going to put them semi-out because I've got one further back in the bed that will give me the information I need. And I go da 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 da. Okay. So these pinks are really leaping in the front here, which is no bad thing. And then we've got to put some leaves on. Keep them quite bright and sunny at this stage. And they are very sort of long, sort of an oval. Leaf. Come right off the page. Yeah. You're just painting a snapshot of what's in front of you. You can't possibly do it all. Let's put a little bit more blue and this one down here. Okay. And they sort of wave around at the top. They're so tall, so they don't have to be so rigid. Okay, I've just readjusted the camera. I'm hoping I have videoed it correctly. I won't know till I finish. So let's move on to the sort of border above, the raised flower bed that I've got. So I'm going to use quite a dry technique to portray white flowers and come in beneath them. It's not easy, but let's have a go. So with that, I can't paint the flowers, I've got to paint the leaves. So I'm going to come in with something a bit darker, with a medium brush. This is a size 16. Again, lemon yellow, bit of ultramarine, and let's see if we can give this feeling of boughs or sprays of white. They really are. There's a bit of a rhythm to it as well. So as they sort of twist and turn up the flower bed and finish at the top. They reach right over here to the left. Okay, I'm going to come in and draw back in with this, with the brush, with a dark green. So I'm going to cut in and around some of this, but leaving that that lovely dry technique. And bobble around the bits below, and underneath you get these lovely leaves. And while they're wet, you can come in with a really deep dark to suggest the depths of the bush right underneath. Dot around the flowers, and then let's cut out some really curling leaves under here. And it really goes dark back here, so I'm going to add a little bit of Pearson to the mix, a cooler red. So I'm dotting around my colours a bit, but they tend to be a cool and warm version of each colour. So I've ended up with Pearson, and this is going to be really quite dark as it goes back behind some of this bird bath. And you'll see that, of course, there's other plants in the way. You can suggest those are catching the light a bit, but essentially, oops, that's not a very good leaf. Let's get a brighter yellow, brighter green. I'm not totally happy on what's going on here. Even just yellow, I suppose, would do the job. Sometimes we have to make the leaves with the point of the brush, so we have to do them slightly back to front. Let's soften what's going on over here. So there's darks within darks and lights within lights, so you'll find that there's a mid-dark and a really dark beyond that. They're not all, and to darken they're not all the same sort of dark, different shades of dark, as I said. But this dark background into the flower bed is certainly going to highlight my dish, but equally you don't want to lose, you don't want to make it too solid that you lose all your lighter mid-tones. So I'm coming back in with some other light tones. There's a really big leaf plant here I haven't put in yet. Let's put that in there. That's going to be nice, different sort of leaves. Cannot think of the name of it right now. But nice big leaves coming in there. Let's blend some of this off a bit. Let's go under here. Let's just spray. Peel a little off if you get a little bit excited with the darks. Let's go in here. The blue leaves. Don't see a problem with that. You know, quite often the leaves are blue when they're reflecting the sky. When they're faced up to the sky, make them blue. Makes them shine. So we're going in a little bit around here. I'm getting a bit carried away. But it does help me see sense. I can never see sense, but it helps me see things that are exciting to leave and things that need to come forward and other things need to stay back or go a bit darker underneath. So let's come in and carry on. A few more leaves up here. There's the delivery men. bit more lemon in up here again. You can say it's catching the sunlight a bit. Green always looks quite yellowy in the sunlight, so there's no harm in that. But I cannot go too much over here because it's too wet, so I'm going to come in elsewhere, and then later on, if I decide I really missed a trick there, let's put a bit of light in here, then I can come in with a coloured crayon. And help the situation. Right, so let's come in a few more darks in here. Just cutting in and around some of these leaves. Doesn't have to be all of them, just a few. I'm just going to splatter a bit. It's quite nice, it does splatter up into the white. Now I've lost the white. Oops, that doesn't matter. Let's just dab it out quickly before it dries. Not sure what's happening there. Got a leaf coming down. Okay. So you'll see it's all about lights and darks and making things stand out upon something else. Shapes, subtle changes in tone, more dramatic changes in tone, and so forth. Now the back of this wall edge could have a little bit of dark while I've got it on the brush. Up under this low growth hair. Carry on a little bit, carry along a little bit along there, but maybe not too much. Now these were these big, still don't know the name, but they had, so they've got quite pinky greeny leaves, so let's get the colour changing a bit. So and then I'm going to get my crayon . Oh, it's cold out here. Let's go and get a jumper in a minute. If I draw them well, you might be able to name them, but I doubt it, because they're so loose. Big broad leaves. I'm going to put some marks in there. I quite like some random texture marks going on here, just because I can. So negative, positive paint going on. Quite like that. Some drawing back in. So, you know, don't be frightened about watercolour. You can at least come back in with a crayon. I mean, I'm scratching around here, but you know, if it goes wrong, you just paint over it or scratch it out, or maybe go to mixed media, change it all. Right, so don't really want to overwork that too much. Just take a bit out of that for now. I might cast a little shadow down, just be, I haven't made my mind up yet. So I'm just going to come in and put a little shadow in the bowl, which I can see from here. And at this point, I'm going to keep a tiny glimmer of the edge of the boundary, and at the front too. And then tail it off rather, not tailor it off. Okay, so I've got these big monk's hood up here. Let's just put a little bit of water in that bird bath. It's meant to have water. So I just picked up a cool blue. Sky is quite sort of cool blue today, and it will reflect the sky. And all these warm blues here will counter it. I might just see if I put a tiny bit of ultramarine at the front. Let's see if that helps. A bit of, so it's sort of cobalty type blue actually. You know, sometimes you've got to put it on and see how it looks, and then if it doesn't look right, just drop in a little of something else, or obviously wipe it off, you can do that, but I feel happier with that. And then as it goes around here, it's going to be in the shade, so just deepen the water, darken the tone of the water this end, and hopefully, oops, that will make sense. There you go. And that's going to link the blues, you know, that's going on in each corner of the painting. In fact, I'm going to put a little bit of ultramarine in here, now I'm talking about it, which will help link the ultramarines in the delphiniums or monk's hood, doesn't matter, and link that ultramarine down here. I've used it in the shadows, but sometimes just put some neat ultramarine, and these little pockets of colour are just key to stabilising the whole painting. And use them, you know, don't just do a blob, use them as if they're the colour, as if it's in between other things. That's it, because foliage is like that, it's everywhere, isn't it? Crisscross, does all sorts of things. I'm just really doing it in gaps. Okay, let's not carried away doing that. Let's finish the top now. I don't mind what's going on here. It's light behind the foxgloves, and that's good. So a lot of it's light against dark, dark against light, in order to create space, create form. So we've got these spires of blue going up here. I'm going to come in with a deeper, richer sort of mauvey blue, which tends to darken the ultramarine, and I'm going to come in and just emphasize them a little bit. And they are leaning that way because I think they like the west sun. But also I've got a bit of white here, so maybe we could infer that that is more of the verbena. So let's just pretend that's happening. I'm just going to give us a little spray, loosen up, and then get my stick again, or you can get a crayon, anything you like, because I'm going to draw back in with some dark blue, more ultramarine, and just make reference to stems. And some actually don't go that straight, do they? They sort of wander around a bit. Two many straight ones there. Let's go off the page a bit with those ones, as if they're at the back of the flower bed. I'm going to put another one in here. Perhaps straighten them up a bit so you don't take people off the page. And of course there's these are iris actually. So I'm going to come in and sort of draw some iris in. Just helps, because they're not that big, to be honest. let's keep an eye on what's happening this side. Let's get some more ultramarine and pink. Bit of rose on there. And the page is a little wet, so I quite like, just let's push that to one side now. This is where you've got to go under the clips a bit. There you go. And of course flowers can appear, disappear, then reappear in a flower border. Let's put a few more pinks in there to balance up some of the pinks that are going down here. And I've gone and lost my white there. That was silly. So I wanted to keep some white going across there. Some of this verbena going across, so I've got to rectify that, and I'll show you that at the end. So let's go dark into the top of that verbena branch. Or bough rather than branch. And then that will make that look a little whiter. Okay. And of course the pink elements next to the green work very well. So let's leave that. Okay. Now there were some ferns here. Some roses, it's all too much really, so let's just gosh, there's so much I could put in here. We don't need too much colour, so maybe just ferns will do. So with those I'm going to draw in with some green, dark green, so a bit of ultramarine, some of the yellow, and make it more bluey than greeny. And then I've got these lovely ferns that come out of the rock here coming up. So let's see if I can do those. So I'm literally going to negative paint them and keep some of these marvellous colours that are already on my page. Oops, lost it a bit there. And these come actually right in to the centre stem. So again, so you've got a few lost and found edges happening here, but that's okay. As long as you can see roughly what it is. And then if you want to, you can come straight in and blend a few so that it doesn't look too much like a line drawing. So let's do that a little bit. Of course you can have other things behind, so let's scratch a bit in here. Make it look a little irregular. Okay, so that's one fern. Let's just do some overlapping fronds from another one. So basically I've made it simplify the structure. That's nice and yellow up there, so let's take it right up there. It's quite wet in here still. One thing with lockdown, at least we've had plenty of time to get our gardens straight, and of course the weather's been so good. This is just such a pleasure if you've got a garden to be out in it. or if you've got a patio, you know, you can, or a balcony, you can just grow things. As long as there's light, soil, water, etc., you can grow things. And of course it's so satisfying, especially when you get to vegetables and you can grow your own veg. Okay, so another one. I'm just going to come in down here. That's obviously coming in here, and this one's going to bend out this way. I'm sort of making it up really as I go along, but I've got lots of fern in front of me, so I tend to just choose the fronds that I want to put in. There we go. So this is a one on its, a little bit on its side, and then cut in with a little bit of dark here and there. Again, the mix is still in my palette. Let's put a little bit of pink in with it, so you've got a purpley mix going on, and you've got this crossover stuff going on in there, and this can blend out a bit. Okay, and we're back to the bowl again. I'm not sure I like that bit. Let's get rid of that. Okay, so that sort of filled that space up just by negative painting. I've got ferns there, I've got lots of stuff going on. There's actually this blue salvia coming out, so let's see if I can save a bit of that, because that would be nice. And then getting there. So let's pick up some quite bright ultramarine mauve. So I'm using the same colours I use the delphiniums, or monkshood, whatever, you know, I call them delphiniums, but I know they're monkshood. And you use this to draw in these sort of spires, and they come out and up, out and up, growing over the edge of the wall there. Oops, that's a bit thick, that's a bit too dominant, although it's coming forward, so let's get a bit more pinky. Okay. Again, it's another line, another drawing line, another shape, another curve, another structure that makes this interesting. And I'm just going to put some tiny blue flowers on this. I might use a bit of cobalt, just because we just lose it otherwise. Not dissimilar to ultramarine, just a little less purpley. Okay, but leave that. It's all getting a bit too busy now. So we've got to go back to the top and finish this viburnum. So in we go with the darks again. I sort of got sidetracked again, didn't I? Okay, go on. Where are you? Where are you, pigment? So I don't want to do too many darks up here. I want them to be more airy, you know, because we're coming to the top of the flower bed. I can even scribble in a little bit here and there. The leaves are gorgeous on this, they just sort of hang under the flowers, hang and curl. So let's jiggle around a bit. Let's get some more just coming through. They really are in rows. It's quite surprising. Okay. Let's just take the definition off a little bit. We don't want it leaping too far forward. I'm in danger of overworking this because I'm sitting here and I haven't stood back from it, and that is important, you know. I get carried away and say, what adjustments do I need to make? Or I think I know what I need to do, and actually you get to the end and think, oh crikey, I've overdone it. So say, well, let's pause halfway through and really make sure that we are on the right track and don't overwork anywhere. I'm just going to keep that very loose there, and then of course very loose here. The eyes will do the rest. I don't want to paint in every leaf, God forbid. Okay. There's going to be rest areas within a painting too, where the eye can rest. That's fine. This is a bit of a mess up here. There's a bit of structure, not much. Okay, you can just see a bit of that there, so let's leave it. And then I rather neglected the irises. I sort of started them and didn't finish. So I think they're best actually drawn in. Just a few, doesn't have to be very many. And I picked up a ghastly colour, don't know how. Stems are great, you know. Go down, down, down. As you can see, I'm making them quite blue, so that goes through there. Let's put a few lower down. Sort of draw the whole iris with one line. And some suggestions there. Of course, you've got buds. If you want to put buds in, always good to put buds in. Bit of a blur. Okay, and then I've got this sort of white patch just shouting at me at the top. So let's just not put the sky in. Let's just put some more foliage in the back, but it's got to work. So let's get more delphiniums, of course. So I'm just cooling it down a little. And then I'm going to do that just to make this verbena speckle across the still. Okay. Looks a bit odd actually. Let's put some greens in there to suggest the flower bed goes on and upwards, onwards and upwards. Or trees behind actually is what I have got here. Loads of trees. I think we better stop there. Thank you for watching.